Australians didn't wake up angry because of politics. They woke up angry because their rent went up again, because groceries cost more, somehow way less, and still disappear faster than before, because checking your bank balance now comes with that quiet pause, that moment where you already know the number won't be good. And then, in the middle of all that background noise, a moment on national television cut through. Not because it was clever, not because it was polished, but because it sounded like something you've already said out loud, maybe in your kitchen, maybe in your car, maybe at work. No slogans, no theatrics, just irritation and numbers. And what made people stop scrolling wasn't who was speaking at first. It was the feeling that someone had finally said the part everyone's been dancing around. If you've felt that pressure lately, stay with me. And while you're here, tell me in the comments, what's hit you harder lately? Rent, groceries, or both? Because this story isn't about a TV clip. It's about what that clip exposed.
Well, you're totally right, what I've been saying about it. You can't have 740,000 people come in 22 to 23. It was increased, the Morrison government dropped it from 260,000 to 190,000 at that time. They knew, and I was questioning it then. They knew there was an issue with it at that time. Then when the Labor took over, they increased it from 190,000 up to 240,000 in the first year, 22 to 23. And they said it was for skills. Chris, only 51,605 were actually skilled migrants, and of that, only 1,800 for the construction industry. So you're not going to get the houses built at all. And the impact it's having on the Australian economy.
Yeah, this has become part of the battleground in the internal Liberal Party or coalition wars at the moment, with people like Andrew Bragg saying that immigration is not the main problem with the housing crisis. Well, it might not be the main problem. We all know supply is the main problem. We need to get more houses out there. There's all sorts of factors working against that, including electricity costs and the rest of it. But also, of course, it increases demand for housing when you have that many people coming in. But as you point out, we're not bringing the right people in. We should be bringing in the tradies that we need, but we're not. We're running out of tradies. Surely, if you're going to have high levels of immigration, we can get to bring in the people with the skills that we need.
The exchange happened on Sky News, but it didn't feel like television. There was no shouting, no viral soundbite engineered for clips, no rehearsed outrage. The person speaking didn't raise her voice, she didn't wave charts, she didn't dress the issue up in academic language or moral lectures, she just laid it out. Australians are being pushed closer to the edge. Housing is tighter than it's been in decades. Costs are rising faster than wages. And mass immigration, she said, is pouring fuel onto a fire that's already burning. That speaker was Pauline Hanson, and whether you agree with her or not, the reaction was instant. Because what she said didn't feel abstract, it didn't feel ideological, it felt painfully ordinary, like something you've heard at a barbecue, or on a job site, or in a group chat that never makes it onto TV. If this conversation sounds familiar where you live, drop your city or region below. You'll notice a pattern pretty quickly, and that pattern is where this story really starts.
Well, I totally disagree with what Bragg is saying, Senator Bragg is saying about this, because it doesn't make common sense that if you've got supply and demand, if you've got a huge number of people coming in, and as of a couple of weeks ago, they were bringing in 1,544 per day. They have to have somewhere to live. So the whole fact is, yes, it is a housing crisis due to high immigration coming into the country. So that's ridiculous what he's saying. And yes, if you don't have the people to actually build the houses, construction workers, that is another problem. But they've been bringing in a lot of the workers and who the migrants are, they're bringing in their families. Chris, we can't, just flood the country with people who are not going to add skills to this country and bring in their families. And I say the same with the foreign students. You can't allow foreign students in and bring in their families and spouses and everyone else, because we've You know, they're coming here to do studies. We need to tighten down, crack down on immigration into the country, and one nation will damn well do it.
Got to have a debate. I've said for a long while that I'm very supportive of immigration. You have to control it, and the numbers have to be right. And we've got to have that debate now. Too many people are afraid of the debate because you're screamed at as a racist or whatever. But we've obviously got too many people coming in at the moment, and not the right people, and we've got to fix it. I do, we'll come back to that big issue time and time again, no doubt, but I want to go to a smaller issue that you've highlighted recently through your social media. Here's the clip.
Well, I've come down to Canberra to do estimates, and I had to do some shopping because I like to cook for myself. And I went shopping. Guess what? I'm sure many of you are used to this. You buy these cheap rubbish bags that split and break on you all the time. I'm over it. I'm so angry about this. And 25 cents a bag. I'm sure many of you know how I feel about that. Of course, I had to buy it, didn't I? Because I'm in Canberra and I didn't carry my own bags with me. Anyway, this is what you have to put up with. So, for the cost of living, I'm telling Woolies and Coles, get your act together with the bags.
I reckon a lot of people will be nodding their heads, Pauline. By the way, if you need some shopping bags for your Canberra flat, the back of my car is chockers with all these permanent bags because I always forget to take them into the supermarket. And tell me the truth, did that bag really break or did one of your staffers rip it for the video?
No, bloody well broke. I was so angry with it. But the fact is, Chris, you won't believe it. I've had 14,500 comments and 85,000 views with the tape. You know, the people are supporting me. Yes, Woolies and Coles, go and do something about the bags. They're ridiculous. And what you charge 25 cents is over the top.
As Australians woke up...
Hanson didn't start with feelings. She started with scale. Australia didn't just increase immigration slightly. It didn't edge it up carefully. It opened the tap. Hundreds of thousands of new arrivals in a single year. A number so big it almost stops sounding real when you hear it. But numbers stop being abstract the moment they collide with daily life. They show up at rental inspections with 30 other people. They show up when listings vanish in hours. They show up when available now quietly turns into, sorry, it's gone. And the government's explanation has stayed consistent. Skills shortages, economic growth, productivity. All reasonable words, all comforting words. But then Hanson did something most people don't bother doing on television. She broke the numbers down. And that's where things got uncomfortable. Because when you look closely, only a small fraction of those arrivals were actually skilled migrants, and an even smaller fraction were tradespeople, the exact workers needed to build the homes Australia is supposedly short on. So here's the contradiction hanging in the air. If immigration is meant to solve shortages, but the intake doesn't match the shortages, then what's really being solved? And more importantly, who absorbs the cost when it doesn't add up? If this mismatch feels obvious to you, you're not alone. Let me know below if housing where you live feels tighter now than it did just a few years ago. Because this is where pressure starts to snowball. This is where the debate usually gets sidetracked. Supply matters, people say. And they're right. Australia needs more housing, more approvals, more construction. But supply lives in the future. Demand lives right now. If thousands of people arrive this week, they need somewhere to sleep this week. Not in 5 years, not after planning approvals clear, not after infrastructure catches up. Construction doesn't happen overnight. Trades don't materialise on command. Roads, schools, hospitals, utilities, they all take time. Population growth doesn't wait. And that mismatch creates chaos. It creates bidding wars over homes that should have been affordable. It pushes renters into worse conditions for higher prices. It turns regional towns into pressure cookers they were never designed to be. You can feel it in the inspections, the rushed conversations, the quiet desperation. And yet the political language stays calm, measured, future-focused. That gap between lived experience and official reassurance is where frustration turns into anger. And then Hanson told a story that sounded almost ridiculous at first, but it hit harder than any statistic. She talked about going to the supermarket, buying a flimsy paper bag, paying for it, and watching it split apart before she even made it home. On its own, it's nothing, a forgettable annoyance, but people didn't hear a story about a bag. They heard a summary of the last few years. Pay more, get less, be told it's necessary, be told it's responsible, be told to adapt. That bag became a symbol of being asked to carry more weight while being given less support, of absorbing cost after cost for decisions made far away from daily life. That's why social media lit up, not because Australians are obsessed with shopping bags, but because they recognised themselves in that irritation. If you've had a moment like that, something small that suddenly snapped, leave a comment that says, "That was it for me." Because once those moments pile up, they stop feeling small. The fallout didn't take long. Supporters praised Hanson for saying what others won't. Critics accused her of oversimplifying complex issues. Labor figures dismissed the argument as alarmist. Coalition figures shifted uncomfortably, some quietly agreeing while keeping their distance. State governments, already drowning in housing shortages they don't fully control, were dragged back into the spotlight. And then came the voices that never make it into policy papers. Talkback radio exploded. People calling in from cars, from couches they're sleeping on temporarily, from towns they're being priced out of, veterans on fixed incomes, young workers delaying families, small business owners stuck between staff shortages and housing shortages, unable to solve either. These weren't ideological arguments, they were survival stories. If you've seen someone close to you struggle like this, hit the like button so more people see this conversation, because this pressure isn't isolated. As the debate grew, international comparisons started creeping in. Canada, the UK, parts of Europe, different governments, different cultures, same pattern. High immigration targets, housing supply lagging behind, public frustration boiling over. Instead of offering reassurance, those comparisons made things feel more urgent. Because if other countries are already stumbling through this, Australia doesn't get a free pass. It doesn't get to pretend it's immune. And that realization shifted the conversation again. This wasn't just about numbers anymore, it was about honesty. And that's where Hanson made her sharpest argument. She said the real problem isn't just policy, it's fear. Fear of having an honest debate, fear of being shouted down, fear of being labelled for asking basic questions about capacity and consequence. That fear, she argued, has frozen action while pressure keeps building. She made something very clear. This wasn't about opposing immigration itself. It was about control, balance, planning, matching intake to infrastructure, prioritising skills that actually solve shortages, recognising that compassion without preparation helps no one, not migrants, not communities, not the country. That argument landed because it wasn't radical, it was practical. And by the time the segment ended, something had shifted. This no longer felt like just another political exchange. It felt like a release valve. Whether you agree with Pauline Hanson or not, one thing is impossible to deny. The frustration she voiced is real, it's widespread, and it's growing. Housing isn't just a market issue anymore, it's a social fault line. Immigration isn't just an economic lever anymore, it's a pressure point touching daily life. And the cost of living isn't a temporary inconvenience, it's reshaping how Australians plan their futures, if they plan them at all. So the questions linger. How much more pressure can households absorb before something breaks? How long can governments promise relief while accelerating demand? And at what point does avoiding the debate become more dangerous than having it? Is this the moment Australia finally confronts the collision between population growth and living standards? Or will it be dismissed, delayed, and buried under the next news cycle? That's where you come in. Do you think Australians are being pushed too far? Does the system feel out of balance where you live? Or is this just political theatre masking deeper failures? Leave your thoughts below, share this with someone feeling the squeeze, and subscribe because this story isn't finished and the pressure isn't easing.